Just because breastfeeding is natural doesn't mean it's easy. But you don't have to do it alone. That's where the Lactation Network comes in. The Lactation Network helps parents at every stage of the breastfeeding journey. Whether you need support resolving feeding issues, choosing the right breast pump, creating a plan for weaning, or anything in between. The Lactation Network is the largest network of licensed breastfeeding experts in the country. They provide in-home, in-office, and telehealth consultations in all 50 states with no out-of-pocket cost. Get the breastfeeding care you deserve with the Lactation Network. Visit tln.care/podcast to schedule your own insurance-covered lactation consultation today. Breast milk science. It's a thing, and it's our thing. We're By Heart. Our mission is simple: make the best infant formula in the world. We partnered with breast milk scientists, world-class doctors, and passionate parents to write a new recipe from scratch. And while we put a lot into By Heart, there's a long list of things you won't see on our ingredient list, like corn syrup, soy, or palm oil. Curious if By Heart is right for your baby? New customers can shop the starter pack and get 2 cans for the price of 1 at byheart.com/getstarted. This is a limited time offer. Additional terms and conditions apply.
The podcast playground.
Hooray! Hey, it's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Howdy ho, geek culture people. It's me, your boy, Jesse Blaze Snider, the coolest geek alive, coming at you hot with another Saturday morning episode of the show. These are like my little mini shows where I do little top 10s or little interviews, things that are fun. And keeping with this characters in name only thing, I just saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which unbelievably happens to contain 11 classic Ninja Turtles characters in name only. These characters have been named a name that is familiar to Ninja Turtles fans like myself, but the name is not representative of the character that we love. I mean, in some ways for some of them, but we're going to get into this thing. First, my review. Well, I mean, if you watch the recently released trailers since this movie's come out, there are quotes calling it the funniest comedy of the year. It crushes for every age. No, it doesn't. It's all right. It's an entertaining film that largely had me rooting for the protagonist, the Turtles. The art style was really cool. It had an almost kind of claymation vibe about it, kind of like Paranorman a little bit. I really like that animated movie. But at points, it just looks really weird. I kept wondering if people were getting stung by bees off camera in their faces when I wasn't looking, because like the news correspondent that they keep cutting to, she literally looks like one side of her face is all swollen from a bee sting. And a lot of the people in the movie look like this. It's a bit distracting. I had heard it called distracting by some other people, and they're right. It's definitely a little distracting, but at times it's really cool. It's really dope. It's got a little bit of that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse vibe to it, and I'm largely in support of it. I think my kids were demanding me give it a rating before I left the theater, and I think at the time I said it's like a 7.5 for me. It does not quite fail, but I had a lot of troubles with it, to be honest. And really, all of my troubles came from the cast. The cast of characters that they selected, and then they just did whatever the hell they wanted to do as far as these other characters were concerned. Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Leonardo are all approximately themselves, but everybody else is kind of weirdly not quite them. So I'm just going to start with the characters. There's 11 characters in this movie that are all classic Ninja Turtle characters, but are all a bit off in their depiction. Starting with Splinter, Baxter Stockman, April O'Neil, Rocksteady, Mondo Gecko, Wingnut, Leatherhead, Ray Fillet, Bebop, Scumbug, and Genghis Frog. They are all basically in name only. Why? Well, starts off with Splinter's origin. His original origin is that he's a pet rat to a ninja master who learns ninjutsu watching his master from his cage, which honestly is a bit wobbly. In later iterations of the character, he's revealed to be a mutated version of Splinter's ninja pet owner, Oroku Saki. And that makes a bit more sense for me. For the audience believing that these turtles might be any good at fighting, I really do think Oroku Saki being mutated into a rat because he was spending so much time with them makes a lot more sense than the rat learning ninjutsu from watching his master from his cage. That's a little weird. In this film, you find the idea that they could be good fighters pretty hard to believe. Splinter goes out into public with them when the turtles are just babies, and they are, I don't even know what you want to say. People are yelling at them and freaking out about seeing them, and then he goes back underground and decides that he's going to teach them all how to fight. And they learn how to fight from watching this crappy video that's played as like a joke way for someone to learn karate is the way the Ninja Turtles and Splinter have learned karate. And then the filmmakers expect us to buy them as credible fighters for the rest of the film. It's just a bit weird. That's a bit weird. And it really just undermines the Splinter character, who is meant to be their sensei and kind of a serious character to a certain degree, at least. I mean, he's being played by Jackie Chan here. You guys picked Jackie Chan because you wanted a credible fighter, right? There's nothing credible about this character and the Ninja Turtles as fighters in this movie based on the origin that they give us. So it's things like that, and there's a ton of things like that that really just kind of make you think while watching the movie instead of watching the movie. The whole time I was watching the movie, I couldn't stop thinking, why'd they do that? Why'd they make that choice? That was weird. That was strange. What does that mean? What does this mean? It all meant things that weren't really good for the overall plot of the film. This is also the thing for Splinter that ties him to Shredder, either through him wanting revenge for his master who was killed by Shredder in the original origin story, or him actually being the jiu-jitsu master getting revenge for himself on Shredder all these years later. You know, at the end of this movie, they tease Shredder, even though Shredder's not in the movie in any way, shape, or form. But now they're going to have to shoehorn in connecting him to Splinter if they want to do that. I just think that if a connection to Shredder had been teased in this film in some way, it would have went a long way to making their fighting ability more believable than it is in this film. And it's really played for jokes. I mean, legitimately, no one is looking to see the things that they love deconstructed in any fundamental way like this. Making their ability to fight come into question undermines the entirety of this film. Even more so when Donnie keeps referring to his bow staff as a stick. Yesterday, I'd always presumed that all the turtles, had chosen their weapons by love or proficiency. And now this movie is leading me to believe that it's an idea that was forced upon him. You know, he was forced to pick the stick and he doesn't see it as very useful. There are other weapons. This is just a bad look for your movie, for your character. It undermines the credibility of the story that's being told. It's just a bad joke to make, okay? It suggests that the story is unnatural in some way, and it's been laid out this way for 40 years. So you guys are going out of your way to be like, look at how unnatural this story is. No, we're with it. I think billions of Ninja Turtles fans can't be wrong. It works perfectly fine. Don't really see a reason to deconstruct it the way we do here. But whatever, this is their movie, not my movie. Continuing down our list at number 2, we've got April O'Neil. April O'Neil is a professional reporter. She is an adult, not an old person, but an adult. She's not in high school, she's not in college. She is a pro who could actually help the Turtles in the way that they're going to be perceived by the outside world through her connections on television and the news. okay? The April O'Neil in this film is just a high school student, a high school nerd who is made the butt of many jokes and does not carry any of the authority that the April O'Neil from the comic books or, as she's traditionally depicted has. This character can't do anything for them. She's just a teenager in high school. And they gender swapped her and I guess body type swapped her. And that's okay, I guess. But why? Why not just create a new character? If this character wasn't called April O'Neil, I would have had nothing to say or think about throughout the film. I would have had no criticisms to make about her after the film was over. You want to avoid unnecessary criticisms of your film? Don't significantly change characters that we already have a relationship with as fans in your movies or your TV shows. Just create new ones. A new April O'Neil would have been a perfectly reasonable idea, and we would not be having this conversation right now. Okay? That's all I have to say about April O'Neil. Baxter Stockman. His gimmick is given to Superfly in this film. Baxter Stockman's the scientist, a mutant who works with the mutagen. There's a lot of different versions of Baxter Stockman, but traditionally he gets turned into a fly, a mutant fly. That's what Superfly is, the Ice Cube character. He's a mutant fly. And he honestly is a lovely addition, except for the loss of Baxter. And guys, casting that dude, Giancarlo Esposito, over and over and over again from Breaking Bad as your bad guys, that's not like the done-in-one be-all, end-all fix for your bad guys. You're making all your bad guys exactly the same. It's so overdone at this point. And it really misses the point of that character in particular, who's always been portrayed as a bit of a geek scientist, as to the audience who loves the material. And giving him the frightening and measured voice of Giancarlo Esposito is such a misfire. Surprisingly, one of the only things that the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles films did well was present us with a take on Baxter Stockman that was nice and nerdy and rather enjoyable. We never got to see that Baxter Stockman pay off in those films because they were ass, and they recognized that they were ass because they weren't selling any toys. And apparently this film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, is a repudiation of the fact that they didn't sell any merchandise with the Michael Bay films. Isn't that funny? This is how money motivated all of this stuff always is. And sometimes that money motivation can actually be really good for us, the fans. But in this case, it's not, because the people who made the stuff I don't think that they're educated enough in their Ninja Turtles lore to have properly satisfied us in the ways that we're looking to be satisfied. So people who are old school Ninja Turtle fans, you're probably going to be a little annoyed like I was. And there were so many easy ways to not tick off the fandom while making this movie. I mean, seriously, we'll go through them as we go through all these different characters. So apparently this film series does away with the notion that contact with a certain kind of animal over a long period of time can lead human beings into getting turned into human-animal hybrids. Instead, this movie presents one uniform idea of the mutagen only mutating animals and perhaps even just killing people who are exposed to it. So this means every single mutant animal character essentially has the same origin now. They are just formerly animals, and now they can think, speak, and act like humans. So this means every single mutant animal character essentially has the same origin now. They are just formerly animals, and now they can think, speak, and act like humans, meaning that every good backstory for every mutant side character has been changed, and mostly not for the better. Now, fans of the comic book iterations of the Ninja Turtles will probably remember a team of mutant animals known as the Mighty Mutanimals. This team is sort of represented in the cast of this film, but changed in a lot of significant ways in terms of all their origins and how they're coming together and everything else. If they had stuck a little bit more closely to the roster of the Mighty Mutanimals, I think that a lot of these bad guys turned good guys in the film, because all these characters start out as bad guys, but by the end of it, they're going to all have changes of heart. So forgive me if I'm spoiling it for you right there. But I mean, you kind of know when you see Mondo Gecko and a lot of these characters that they're probably going to veer to that side of things at some point. But they veer every single one of these bad guys, except for Superfly, onto the side of good by the end of it, which is really weird for characters like Bebop and Rocksteady, who are not members of the Mighty Mutanimals. Now, characters like Wingnut, he is a member of the Mighty Mutanimals. He's usually with his friend Screwloose. Here, it's reduced to just Wingnut. It's voiced by a girl, despite looking like a boy, and having always previously been portrayed not just as a boy, but as a loose Batman parody with a sidekick, his mosquito mutant friend, Screwloose. Now, this plays to the strengths of the Turtles, who are comic book parodies of Daredevil to begin with, right? The Turtles, instead of fighting the hand, the Turtles fight the foot. Instead of being trained by Stick, like Daredevil was, the Turtles are trained by Splinter. So, losing Wingnut and Screwloose in this interesting Batman homage, that sucks. That's the first thing that I saw gone that I was really sad about. Was really weird also, her being voiced by a female character. Why not introduce one of the existing mutant female characters? There's plenty. Or why not just make a new character? Next up, you got Ray Fillet. Man Ray, as he can be called often, is originally a marine biologist with a heroic kind of animal rescue slant in the old Archie comics. Here, he's just a ray, a manta ray that gets turned into a mutant animal. He's one of the characters that were picked by Baxter Stockman to be part of his family of mutant animals that he's making at the very beginning of the movie before he gets taken off the table and Superfly has to raise all these characters. Superfly is essentially the surrogate father and big brother to all of these mutant animal characters who I'm going through right now. So he's a clean slate. Everybody's a clean slate. Mondo Gecko is a clean slate. But previous origin for Mondo Gecko was really cool as it tied into the Turtles. Mondo Gecko, he's a real-life teenager, a skateboarding kid, a metalhead. And that makes it really a cool thing for Michelangelo to be able to be friends with Mondo Gecko, who's a teenager who likes all the teenager stuff that Michelangelo likes. He was, at least. Now he's a mutant animal, but you understand what I'm saying? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they want to be real teenagers because essentially they are real teenagers for all intents and purposes. So Mondo Gecko being turned into a gecko, well, that's really cool. Now a teenager has been forced to come to their side, and now Michelangelo has a friend who's a real teenager from the real world. That's pretty cool. That's not here anymore. But Mondo Gecko does have a personality very much like his personality in any media that you want to see Mondo Gecko in. He's played by Paul Rudd, which was a bit of a weird casting thing for me because he does sound like an adult more than he sounds like a teenager. They cast real teenagers as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but for Mondo Gecko, they cast an adult just kind of doing a goofy teenager voice. So again, just sort of weird choices being made here. Next, you have Leatherhead. Leatherhead's a weird one because in the comics, Leatherhead is similarly to this film. He was just an alligator who gets turned into a mutant animal person. But more prominently known because most people got into the cartoon before the comics. The comic was a small indie comic book, and the animated series was where most people got it. In the animated series, he's a bad guy, and he speaks with a Cajun accent. They do an episode with the 4 punk frogs, including Genghis Frog, who's in this movie I'll get to in a second. And they're in the bayou, essentially, and he's this bayou gator, this Cajun accented gator, which makes some amount of sense. In this film, Leatherhead is a girl with an Australian accent. Explain that to me. Explain that to me, where this girl picked up this Australian accent from, and why this girl is dressed like a dude who is either from the bayou or from Australia or something like that, when it's just an animal that was a baby animal that got mutated and has been raised by Superfly. This doesn't make any sense. Like, no sense at all. All right? Really, really weird. And let me just say, like, Wingnut, Ray Fillet, Mondo Gecko, Leatherhead, these are all members of the Mighty Mutanimals. And they could have easily rounded out the rest of Superfly's minions with Wingnut's sidekick, who's a mutant mosquito, Screw Loose, maybe Slash, who's a very popular character who's essentially like a mutant snapping turtle, or Sally Pride, who's a female character, she's a mutant lion, Herman, the hermit crab. A lot of these are characters from the comic books. I really always liked Pigeon Pete, who's a mutant pigeon. I think that makes so much sense for the Turtles living in New York City. Pigeon Pete, I really think, is a great one. They could have put that in. Or they could have just came up with completely new characters. That would have also been great. It was really strange of them to include these other characters and what it means that they included these other characters. Of the non-Mighty Mutanimal members here, we've got Genghis Frog, who, first of all, is totally wasted in this movie as a one-note gag for being a teeny tiny character that's barely has a presence there. He's like a foot off the ground. It's just like he's a one-note joke. And this could have been done to any character they wanted to make up fresh. But instead, they took one of the 4 members of the Punk Frogs, which are beloved by the fans, and they basically wrote out all of the other Punk Frogs from the universe by introducing just one of them in this way here. So, creating a universe where we want to see more of the things brought to life in it, that's not happening here. When you take Genghis Frog and you make him an individual with this group, then it automatically precludes that those other characters don't exist. And a lot of us, we have history of playing with these toys and creating stories of our own for these characters, other than even the stories that exist already that are being wiped off the board. So I don't really think this was a good choice. Also, you got another character, Scumbug. He's always been portrayed as a piece of garbage, not someone who would change sides to save humanity, or that is so stupid as to not be a threat in any way, which this character is so stupid as to not be a threat in any way. And in this film, he ends up being a she also, who is a mutant idiot cockroach who Splinter falls in love with at the end. Apparently, Splinter's really into complete disgusting idiots. I guess that's the thing. Anyway, it was just really weird. And again, they could have just invented a character instead of misusing a character who already exists, who there are toys of, who I personally had played with for years and years, who was an obvious bad guy and presented him a certain way, and now all of a sudden he's being presented in this way. Like, just invent something new that I could love. I probably would have loved the Scumbug character if his name wasn't Scumbug. But instead, I just kept thinking, really? Like, that's okay. Why? Just invent some new shit, guys. Anyway, at the end of the movie, all of these characters, except for Superfly, change sides and become good guys, which makes sense for most of them, but not for Scumbug, and certainly not for the next 2 on this list, Bebop and Rocksteady. They were created by the 80s cartoon series as henchmen for Shredder and comic relief. And here, they represent neither. They don't stick out from the other characters in the film, except in that they're larger, more powerful, and scarier compared to the others. Considering all of their previous depictions as characters and the fact that this movie ends by teasing Shredder, I do not understand why they had these 2 characters switch sides along with all the others. They could have been defeated prior to the Turtles and their new friends having to defeat the gigantic mutated Superfly at the end of the movie, and they could have stayed bad guys so that they could be picked up by Shredder for the sequel. But this depiction of them doesn't benefit them in any way, because they've always been simpletons, so them being animals originally doesn't really screw up their characterization so much, but it makes their style choices very suspect. When they were punk gang members, their style spoke to who they were. Now they're animals with really bizarre style. Again, new characters could have prevented all of this criticism and stopped all of these thoughts from running through the heads of the educated audience as we watched. But calling them Bebop and Rocksteady, having them start with Superfly, having them become good guys in the end, this is not satisfying to fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It just sort of confuses the whole property. There are ways to do new things and break new ground, but also honor the past. And this movie does a really piss poor job at that for the most part, with the possible exception of the Ninja Turtles, who, again, Donnie's running around going, I got a stupid stick. Like, oh my God, that's like, no, please don't do that. Yeah, I think this was a weird movie for fans. Some things are handled really well and were quite satisfying, while so many choices just seemed bizarre. Anyway, this is Jesse Blaze Snider with another short version of the Coolest Geek Alive on Saturday morning. I hope you're having a great weekend. I'm having a great week. Recording on Friday. Got a lot of cool things to do. Been seeing a ton of great movies with my kids. Saw The Meg 2. Saw Jules. Tonight I'm going to see the premiere early showing of Gran Turismo, which is based on a true story, and my son Grayson really wants to go see that flick. So I'm excited. Been seeing a lot of really good movies, including Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which was good enough, I guess. And in this day and age, good enough, I guess, is as good as good, I guess. If you don't follow me on Twitter, do so, please. Follow me at Coolest Geek JBS. And if you haven't yet backed my Kickstarter for King of Kings #1, go there right now and pledge to the cause. We need you. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and join me again next time for a fabulous episode of the Coolest Geek Alive!
Hey, it's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't it heavy? I played that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Stay with your tribe! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Revenge of the Geeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Week after weeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Laughing with you! It's gonna be fucking awesome! And crying sometimes too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Spelling it out! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Making you shout! I'm a genius! I got lyrics coming out me bum for days! You like that? It's a kazoo solo! I played that too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Talking some shit! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Living the shit! My voice is fucking awesome! Food in our mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Get in the mouth! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Tell all your friends! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Call right our text! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Raising the bar! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Straight to the stars! It's gonna be fucking awesome! It's starting soon! Straight to the top of the awesome! Passing the moon! It's gonna be fucking awesome! On with the show! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Ready, set, go! It's going to be fucking awesome! Fucking awesome! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Just wait! You'll see! You'll all see! You'll all see.